That's what God created it. Okay? That's just my thing. But unfortunately, it didn't happen that way. Okay? But now let's go back to this. Okay? And he said, and the man said, which is the human today, this is the bone of my bones and the flesh of my flesh. She will be called a woman. Notice a man with a womb. Woman. Okay? Because she was taken out of man. That's the only one time in the human history that the woman was taken out of a man. That's so that way that the man will come out of the woman from that point on. The males and females will come out of the woman, out of the woman from that point on. Again, the power of choosing. But if you have the wrong information, that's why you're choosing wrong. There was one time, I remember years ago, that a young lady came over and said, Pastor, I'm always choosing the right people. Yeah, the wrong people, she said. I'm always getting all this bunch of people that are jerks and all this bunch of people that are bad, that are a bunch of players and everything. And I said, your information's wrong. And she looked at me kind of funny and she said, what do you mean my information? And I said, your information, how you choose the people that you think you like, are wrong. You need to change your perspective about yourself. You're attracted to a certain individual that you choose to like, I said. And that is why every person that you date is almost the same or even worse than the one prior. So your priorities have to change. It was crazy how a lot of the times in marriage we choose the wrong path based on other people's perceptions instead of what God has established in His Word. We choose to be evil. We choose to be mean. We choose to fight. We choose to last weeks. And yet in those weeks, you'll never get them back. Does that make sense? Of course it doesn't. You've got to understand that God, just like here, God presented Eve, okay? So he would have the choice to say, no, I don't want her, I want somebody else. No. But he said, he realized something. He said, this is not the bone of my bones. This is mine. This is my bone, same as her. This is me, my reflection of me. That's the decision that he had to make that moment in time. It's when he said, I do. You know what we said when we get married? We said we say the I do's and then our vows. That is the commitment that he said right at the moment when he said, I do to you. I do to you. You do to me. That is the point of time when we say our vows as well. This is the vows. This is now my bone of my bones. And now, he says now. He was by himself and he says now. My bone of my bones and the flesh of my flesh. We continue to fight and doing all this bunch of things because of individualism. Instead of corporate thinking. That's what's happening. I can do what I want. You don't tell me what to do. Have you ever heard that before? Even from my kids? You see, it's all about the power of decisions. Marriage is about decisions. Marriage is founded on the choices to, number one, to dedicate your life united with the other person. Just like Adam, before they fell, he made that decision that she is me. She is the total reflection of me. She is me in the female version. Number two, dedicate your decision sole benefit of the marriage, not individualism. This is what's happening today. If you buy this, you feel better. If you do this, if you do that for yourself, you can delight, you can indulge, you can this, you can that. It's all about individualism. But in marriage, it's all about the foundation of the family. It's not about you anymore. And that's why we're having so many issues. Because if you continue to be an individual, you will never ever prosper as a family. You're always going to have issues. Next one. They said, dedicate your heart to honor the other person. See how Adam, when he said, see the bone of my bone and the flesh of my flesh, he said, no, I'm going to treat her the same way I love myself. That's what Jesus said. Love your neighbor as thyself. Love your neighbor as yourself. It's the reflection, okay, the reflection of the decision that Adam made before the fall, because that was the perfect harmony of heaven, of where the kingdom will belong to. That's kingdom mindset. In fact, the Bible even states if a man cannot even handle his house, he is not fit to actually serve in the church. That's how important it is. It is so important to understand that. The other one, dedicate your life to be truthful towards one another. They were truthful. What happens in the fall? What's the first thing that Adam did? The woman that you gave me, God, was the one that made me fall. Adam had the opportunity to choose to own his fall, but he didn't. And that way, he infected the entire seed of the population of humanity at the moment that he spoke those words, because God spoke to Adam first. That moment contaminated every single human being after that. And that's why God needed to change the seed of humanity into his own perfect seed, which is Jesus, to restore humanity back into the kingdom mindset. Because after that statement that we hear that from Genesis 2, Adam contaminated everyone after him. That is still lived today. Marriage also, we dedicate your life to be truthful to one another. In fact, the Bible tells us that we need to be truthful. Because if you're not truthful with your spouse, you're not truthful with yourself. So that means that you're sick. You're still contaminated with the poison of the world. You see what I'm saying? We've got to understand, folks, please understand this principle, that you will do our if you will treat others according to how you treat yourself. If you're not honest with yourself, then you will not honest with everybody else. Have you ever said, for example, hey, are you okay? Even though you're not okay, you with steam coming out of your ears and they say, I'm fine. That's lying. And all liars are the children of the devil. Be careful what you do. Instead of doing just saying you're fine, just say, I need a moment, please leave me alone. And walk away. That's honesty. No, I'm not fine. I'm a little bit upset. Please give me space. Total honesty there. Truthfulness. Correct? You got to make sure, guys, you got to make sure that this principle is right here. You make sure you do it because we constantly are doing it, and we constantly display what our beliefs are. Dedicate your balanced time to spend it with one another. Balance your time. There's time for everything. There's people who have very successful after three marriage failures. Why? Because their God is their work. Dedicate your resources to build a kingdom foundation for future generations. Whatever you're doing and not doing for the kingdom, you're teaching them to your kids. That's your responsibility to reflect where you're from. And I'm not talking about Papunya. Where are you from? There's only two kingdoms. Which one do you belong to? Don't tell me. Act upon it. Because your actions speak louder than your words. Because your children will see who you really are. That's why we have a lot of kids abandoning churches because they have one face one time, and then when they get at home in the afternoon after church, they turn into this person that is unrecognizable. 6 days a week they become evil. Sunday morning they got that. Yeah. Hello. Don't do that. Don't do that. Okay? Please, dedicate your resources to build a kingdom foundation for your future. I'm not talking about just here. I'm talking about in your home. Whatever values that you have a time with your family reading about. Have you had time to turn to all the values, the laws and principles upon which God has established in your home, and you teach it with love and principles? Now you teach it your own on the ways of the world. Listen to what the Bible says in Proverbs when you teach a child about it. He said that it will be a thorn and thistles for the parents, but it will be a long suffering for the all. I'm not saying this. Okay? You dedicate your life growing as a loving couple. That's a decision that you have to make every day. You get up every day and you make your own decision. You say, well, trust me, not everybody has a great morning. Not everybody does. It's understandable. The other day when the earthquake happened, 2 o'clock in the morning, my daughter calls me and said, hey, God, you sure pretty bad. Okay, honey, and I said it was only a 4 point something. Okay, I know, because the structure pushing this, it's fine. Okay, and I'm like, okay, yeah, baby, don't worry about it. You're going to be okay, just in case something happens, whatever. Yada, yada, yada. I didn't have to worry. Why? Number one, because I pay attention to stuff like that. Number two, the Bible says not to worry. If I believe that my daughter's in his hands, then I have to show it with my actions. Okay? So dedicated time when you're in a couple. A lot of the times, because you just got to observe. We're so self-centered. There's people that are so self-centered that they just don't take the time to observe what's going on. What's happening? What's going on? What are they feeling? What are they doing? What are their likes? What are their dislikes? It's you. Iceberg, right? Iceberg in the water. Only a little tip you'll see. And then there's a bigger problem that it might not necessarily be you. You're just taking the blunt force of what's really happening. Do you know what that is? Do you know what's going on with your spouse? Do you know what's going on with you? Are you honest with yourself? Perhaps you have bitterness, hate, whatever. You got raped in the past. You never dealt with it. Somebody betrayed you years ago in a relationship, so you decided unconsciously to manipulate men and make their lives miserable for the rest of your life. Or the same way with women. Does that happen? Do you think you might be truthful enough with yourself to say, you know what, that is really what's wrong with me? You see what I'm saying? Listen, that's what I'm saying earlier. That when in marriage, there's two things that you got to analyze: the risks and the benefits. The risk that you're doing, what you're bringing to the table, and the benefits that you bring into the table. And then you go analyze the risk that she or he is bringing to the table, and one of the benefits that he or she is bringing to the table. And this foundation called marriage. Did you see what I'm saying? Like I said, just like I started saying, we have this marriage issue. Number one, oh, they look great, they're great in bed. Let's get married. But then I'll analyze the brokenness and the stupidities that actually made and everything else, especially if there's not Jesus in the middle. They do all this bunch of things, they do all these things, and then they get married, and 2 weeks later, unreconcilable differences. Sorry, I need to tell you how it is. I may catch heat because of this video, but I don't care. That's the truth. Because just like I said during your marriage, hey, during your ceremony, last year almost, I said, marriage is not for cowards. It starts with an individual decision, which ends up in a corporate blessing. Very interesting. These things right here that we're doing, it's especially this one. This is the foundation. Dedicate your life growing as a loving couple. Loving couple is one another. You make that decision every day. But it's okay for you to say, you know what, I have this problem. I was telling one of the kids while I was coaching, I said, this young kid, very smart kid, and she turned around and she goes, hey, coach, you know what? I made this mistake, and I knew it. And I said, great. That's what I want to hear. And she looked at me kind of funny, and I said, in order for you to know where you're going, you need to first know where you're at. And the part of admitting where you're at requires humility. I'm so proud of you, I said. She gave a big smile. I told you what to do it right, and she did it right. Was the judgment there? No. Do you see what I'm saying? It's just like when you make a decision to live your life, I'm going to love this woman. For example, I made a decision years ago that I'm going to love this woman for the rest of my life. Regardless of what the world said, regardless of sometimes I feel about, no. My commitment is an issue of character. And I said, I'm going to love this woman for the rest of my life. I'm going to make her smile. I'm going to make her laugh. I love her laugh. I love her how she laughs, enjoys laugh. She has a contaminating laugh. It just resonates everywhere. I love that woman just the way she is. And I refuse to change her because God's going to change her. My job is to love her the way she is. Just like I promised over 20 years ago. And I made that decision. And my life's been a lot happier. Have I had rough times? Yeah. Have we lost kids? Yes, we have. But that didn't stop us. That made us stronger. In every situation that we've been through, our hard times and situations have made us not only grow closer together, but also at the same time get closer to God together. And this is why it's so important, this one right here, dedicate your life and grow as a loving couple. We love each other, so that way our love with love for God, God gives us more love so we can give it to our kids and then the people around us. You're going to make mistakes along the way. I'm okay with that. I came to the conclusion that I'm working to be a better man, and I do it every single day. And I'm okay making mistakes for myself. I'm okay that I'm not going to be the perfect husband, but I'm going to try to be every single day to be the best husband that she'll ever have. Because knowing Alma, I'm going to be the only husband that she'll ever have. And my goal is to be that, and also and vice versa. And my life is a lot happier. We're growing old together. Now I got more confidence than she does. I just know how to hide it better. But I know for a fact that that's the decision I have to make. And again, I didn't understand this. Now that I understand and I know, and I apply to my life has been a lot easier with my wife. She's partnering with me to go coaching. She's partnering with me to all the things. I'm partnering with her, but she's got some ideas. It's just constant, and everything flows so naturally. So naturally. Why? Because there's a mutual agreement. And with God, God attracts agreements, especially between two people that have agreed upon, Lord, this is the bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. God is attracted when we honor his word. He is attracted to unity. But if not, what happened to the Tower of Babel? God got attracted to the unity at that point in time. Humanity was at, they wanted to actually build a tower to reach God because they felt alone without him. And that's what God had to change their language. God is attracted to unity. We underestimate our unity. And the more conflict there is, the less of a blessing. It's us who block the blessings from heaven. It's us to actually shut the windows. I'm not going to even try because I like my windows open from there. It's us to close the windows of heaven. It's us who do it. When we act upon our own selfish ways. We love being blessed and be protected and be encouraged, but we don't follow the laws and rules and regulations and the principles God has established to receive such blessings. We have to shift the way we think and fulfill what we need to fulfill. Grace is for you to work on what you're doing wrong. It is not for you to continue doing wrong, expecting another result. That's crazy. There is time for everything. Now, a lot of the times, God will tell you, don't do it. A lot of the times, God will tell you, do it. A lot of the times, God will be silent. And when God be silent, pay attention because God is testing you. Because a teacher always remains silent when there's a test. Am I not? We shared this before. Ecclesiastes 3, verses 1 and 3. There is a special time for everything. Look at that word, special. If you think that your life is miserable, you're wrong. I know how to live without money. I know how to live with one pair of shoes per year. I know how to live with hunger and starvation. I know how I lived that. I lived it. But there was something that I always chosen in my life is that I'm going to live my life to the fullest. And I never got into drugs. Never did. But one thing that I knew that in my neighborhood, they were surrounded by people who truly displayed not only compassion, but they showed love. I came out of a neighborhood that the neighborhood had to get involved in protecting the kids. We were extremely poor. Only had one uniform to go to school. One uniform to go to school. And I had to wash it every single day. And I remember one time when I ironed it, watch this, well, I ironed it, and I burned a hole on it. So I had to put tape behind it so people wouldn't see that I burned my uniform because I only had one uniform. So I know how it is. I know how it is to live in poverty. I knew it. But there was a time, and I chose to continue to enjoy my life because I knew deep inside there was something better for me. And there is a special time for everything. There's a special time for everything. Right now, at this moment, you can be special with your spouse. You can be special with your children. You can be special with the people next to you. There's a special time for everything. But that means it's a special time. Remember that. Your time that you have is special. Okay? And he says, there's a time for everything that happens under heaven. See, time is under heaven. Time is not in heaven, it's under heaven, which means it's supervised by heaven. Heaven is not subject to time. It is not. That's what God says, I am the one who was, is, and is to come. That's what Jesus said. Because it's not subject to time. We are, because we live in a natural world. Okay? And he says this, there's a time to be born and a time to die. So, and for yet, it starts with, there's a special time. Yes or no, moms? Dad? It was one of the most special moments of our lives when we saw our children being born. You remember that? Oh my goodness. I remember every single time. I remember even almost pulled by the doctor because I kept watching to see how my wife was being worked on. Sit down, they yelled at me. I was so excited to see my kids come out. I was like, yeah. And our last one, for example, it was so amazing that God just, with Holy Spirit whispering in my ears and said, tell Alma that I'm here. And she was shaking. And all of a sudden I said, hey, the Lord wants me to tell you that he's here. And Alma, all of a sudden, just calmed down, and that beautiful girl came out. Now it sits over there now. Beautiful girl came out. I remember when Sophia was born, and then Sophia was like, it was a big old party. Big old party. And then she just started crying, kind of weird. I'm looking else. And man, this girl has some lungs. And I remember when Anna was born, it was so happy to see Sebastian's face, to see his sister, and I was so blessed, and I fell on my knees because I remember watching Sebastian be born. And for the first time, I realized that it wasn't about me anymore. And I hold him in his hands and hold him in my hands, and then realize I need to man up from now on. God, I remember those times. It was just like, I remember the parties and everything else. And I remember the doctor when we had Rebecca, the last one, he looked at me. He was so just intrigued and looked at me and he goes, Dad, are you ready? Oh, my goodness. Those are the special times. And we waste the time that we have in so much nonsense. Why? The Bible says that there is time, special time. Your time is special. And especially with marriage, what are we doing wasting all this time? Because somebody didn't pick up their chonies. Somebody didn't do the dishes. Somebody forgot to pay the house. Nowadays, we're having an app. I do it in 30 seconds. Boom, 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 pay. Okay, ready to go. Next. Marriage is a decision we make every day towards the benefit of the home and the kingdom we belong to. You belong to a kingdom that has no limits. You belong to a kingdom that there's no fighting, no yelling, no screaming. Everything's agreeable. Everything's good. Everything's beautiful. And everything is because who he is. But yet we're yelling and screaming at the store, displaying who we really are in front of him. Why do we do that? Why do we waste time when our lives can be so much more? Why do we allow the world to harden our hearts and not believe what we receive from God? Why do we allow the world to harden our hearts and not practice what we hear, and not practice and believe where we came from? Okay? Why do we do that? I hope that this will give you a little bit more explanation of what marriage is all about. I'm seriously, my goal is to set the stage for this upcoming stuff that I want to just tell you. I'm going to put it back over here because it's going to be amazing. Number one, it's going to be amazing. Number two is going to give you more tools that in a different total perspective. Listen, I've listened to all this. I've listened to all this. I read all these books. It's incredible. I can't believe that I'm bringing all the books here, by the way, because they don't fit in my house anymore. I've read so many books about so many things, and one thing that I found that even more intriguing is what the Bible tells me about marriage. In the perspective, with having the perspective of the kingdom mindset. Yes, there's so many books. Yes, there's so many people out there that are so good. They have a beautiful testimony and everything else. And I asked the Lord, and I said, Lord, what do you want me to do? And so on. And I said, you are going to teach this. And I said, okay, how am I going to do it? And I asked him this. We have a great relationship. And he's like, I'm going to teach you what to say. And he starts, and he brings, as I sit down and start writing, he brings me all this experience that I have and all these things, and he guides me through. And I'm telling you, it's going to be something that you think it might be the same. It is not going to be the same. It's going to be different. Amen? Go ahead, sweetheart. Thank you, everybody. Why don't we stand up real quick?